All right, so next up is transitions, right? And thinking about going into other areas, right? And not just your transitions between your own individual interactive areas, but your transitions from your area into the next students, right? Or from the previous students level, right? Remember, you're going to end up in groups with this. That's the long-term thing I want everyone to plan for, is that you're going to be in a team, most likely a team of anywhere from 3 to 6. Usually the average is about 4 or 5. I think 4 is the sweet spot. It's a really good number, but usually it's about 4 to 5 students. So if you're the third area, how does a player get into your level from the previous one, and how do I exit once I'm finished and get into the next teammates? And I know right now you're like, I have no idea who's going to be on my team. How do I know how to transition between them? You don't know just yet, right? It's going to change and adapt. What I want you to do is come up with your best case scenario, come up with your best plan. So include exactly one player start, the area where you want the level to begin. And then from there, choose one finish, right? One specific area where when they get to this point, they have completed all the objectives or the primary objectives in my level, and they're ready to go into the next area, the next student's area. So these will allow you to connect and blend into other spaces. So be flexible. Create areas and specific spots in the level where you could blend or transition into. All right. Start with something walkable, right? Start with something to where the player can easily walk and transition to the next level, right? So you're not going to be loading new scenes. You're not going to be teleporting the player to the next area. Everything is going to be physically connected. So you want there to be a plan in place. Also think about having a cutscene, right? We've talked about a few of these already throughout the course. If you want to do things like a vehicle, right? You jump into the vehicle, a cutscene plays, and the vehicle drives and then crashes into the next area. What you want to do in that cutscene or designing that cutscene is showcase where the cutscene will start, where the cutscene will ideally finish, and thinking about what the player is actually going to see in that car, right? It's one thing to just have your player finish icon and say, okay, the cutscene starts right here, but then there's just nothing that showcases how long the cutscene is, the distance the camera's going to move. At least have a plan. Like right now, we're just moving shapes around, moving icons on a map, and it's much easier to come up with ideas and come up with different possibilities right now than it would be to say make all these design choices inside 3D when the level's already built. So I know this is going to change. I know you don't know who your teammates are just yet, but just think best case scenario. If I could leave my level and enter the next area however I want to, what would you want to do? What's your plan? So yeah, just plan for those as best as possible and think about what the player will see, right? So say for example, oftentimes a student will want to end a level on a rooftop, right? And the player gets picked up by a helicopter and it takes him to the next level. That's what the map says and that's what the written notes say. But the map itself just shows the cutscene icon on top of the building. It doesn't have any planning for where the helicopter will go or the path, the overall distance the helicopter will travel, right? And if the player, even if the cutscene camera is inside the helicopter, you can still see other geometry or things in the level. So that's where, again, the terrain comes into a great account to really surround the whole building or surround that area so you know during that cutscene you can't just see the edge of the world. So like I just mentioned on top of a rooftop, avoid ending the level inside these spaces, right? On a rooftop, inside of a room with no doors or that's locked, right? Inside of a safe and the safe closes on them and the level ends, you're not going to very easily be able to get to the next level. So underground, so that doesn't mean you can't have an underground level. Just think about you're going to have to start the level on the ground floor, right? And then the player takes an elevator or drops down to a hole or some way they get into the underground section, they complete the whole level, and then at the end of that, they're going to have to climb back up back to the ground floor. So even if you want to build an underground level, think about how do they get out of underground and how do they get back above ground, and have a plan in place and some detail in that. So again, like on a rooftop, I just gave an example of that. That doesn't mean you can't have your level take place on a rooftop. You just need to think about, how do I get down? How do I get to the ground floor and transition? Because maybe you do have a teammate that has another rooftop level and you end up connecting it by, jumping across or having, beams that you walk across. But maybe it's someone that's on the ground floor. So you need to think about, maybe there's a fire escape or a cutscene that drops them off, or they parachute off the side, or something allows them to actually get to the ground floor and transition. So start with this right here. This is the key word for everybody I want you to focus on first, is think about a walkable transition. An easy way to just seamlessly walk into the next area, the next student's area. After that, if you have a good plan in place and you feel that you have the technical skills and you want to include a cutscene or a more interesting or creative interaction, think about doing so. And when you do that, do your best to think about right down here what the player will see. So here's just two examples that you could see in the notes for the level, right? Just specifically saying the cutscene will trigger and what you will see during that cutscene, right? Be very specific and detailed in the notes and on the layout of the map itself.